Communist Party doesn't violate copyright, engage in espionage, and intellectual property theft. They're just acquiring their fair share of the world's ideas. So with the current situation that the world is going through, the pandemic, and its origins in a certain location that shares the name of certain porcelain, certain cookware, flatware. Now, is flatware the actual flatware? Is flatware the plates and stuff like that, and the pots and things with the blue and anyway. So it's China. I'm talking about China. So the Chinese Communist Party. There are things about what that place does, and it's it's crazy. I've talked about this in a separate video, in a separate location. How I was talking about how the Chinese Communist Party is pretty much everything that people on the West who dislike Donald Trump in general accuse Trump of being. The Chinese Communist Party is that and worse. And some of the things going on there, we say, what is going on here? Why don't people realize what's going on here? I might ask this in a separate thing just to ask people. But if you object to what's happening in the West, in the United States of America, or your country, let's say you're not in the United States of America, or you are in the United States of America, or you're in China, chances of you actually hearing this in China, that's already one of the things. If 50 years from now, would you think it would be a better world if where you live is more like the United States of America is today, or more like China is today? Now, this question has a lot of levels on like how much you actually understand about either of these countries, but some of the claims, and I'm just looking at people voting with their feet, and more people seem to be going to the United States of America than going to China. China is doing a lot more of going to other countries and trying to get in those countries, trying to get relations with those countries, while the United States of America might be going more into like a bit of a background of coming back and becoming more insular, becoming more isolationist, if people might want to use that term. But there was a time when America was being accused of imperialism. Now, when China is doing similar things, people are like, it's China. And I don't understand. Is this a situation of the Orient? This is something I've said for a while. When it comes to socio-political things and things like that, it seems like Asians are a bit of political ninjas, where people don't necessarily talk about it too much. And maybe it's just a different culture, different society, the East versus West thing. And I do think it's somewhat different, where some people might not understand the actual aspects of it. What you have in the West, especially places like the United States of America, or even in Europe, in the former colonial countries, they have some black population in there, but I don't think they have that much of an Asian population, of a direct Asian. We're talking about the Southeast Asians. We're talking about people like China, South Korea, talking about Japan, where there's not that big a population within that country. So I think the people in those countries don't have surrogates where they can say, oh, we understand people who kind of look like those people, who kind of think like the people from those countries. So we can kind of make some kind of assumption of how those places actually are. And there's actually people who are recent migrants from that place who are more involved in the political systems, in the political spheres, that can give more ideas and input into it. And a lot of those places are also English speaking, so you can actually hear more directly from the people. Whereas with China, first of all, there's a massive amount of just censorship and control of what comes out of that country. So even if you hear the little that comes out, it's normally in Chinese. Are we getting enough people translating? Yes, that's happening more now. We have people like the ADV podcast, which is a podcast online of two people who actually were living in China for a while. It's like Spetsnaz or something like that. Serpentas. I think he was the first. He's a South African, but he was the first person having vlogs in China before the whole censorship curtain came down on YouTube. So he got popular from that, and now he's left. Now he lives in the United States of America with his friend Lowy45 or something. And he's an American, and he was teaching English in China as well. And they both married Chinese women, and they had kids, and they moved out because of different issues. They're giving different things. There's other places. Some of the people are related with like Falun Gong, which is another questionable thing. But then the actual action of what the Chinese Communist Party did to Falun Gong compared to the sort of persecution that people claim is happening in the West, especially in the United States of America, over certain religions and things like that. There's different issues. But there's NTD. There's other sources online where you can actually get information. And it seems there's more seemingly accurate information about China coming out from people who aren't in China than actually coming out of China. Yet the United States of America, it seems to be, well, I guess that's kind of this, is that the kind of the same? Where the main news sources in the United States of America have their own biases. So I kind of get that. But when it comes out, that's how you're going to get things in English that's easy to understand. But just some basic things about the Chinese Communist Party. Why don't people understand what's going on? When a country can literally say, if you're going to come here and start a business, we need to have actual government officials in your actual company. You're only allowed to do XYZ under our supervision. There's things which are just direct. You can just tell these people just completely copied this. Copyright laws, intellectual property laws, I have some questions over that. Have different videos talking about that, like what is art, what is the copyright, what do I feel about these things, how can I actually own something like this. But some of the things that they claim are being done, they just outright copies, they just blatantly copy something and just say, no, we didn't copy that, this is just ours. I don't mind somebody taking something I created and be like, yeah, I really liked what you created. I did it also like this. Check it out. That's a different situation than just saying, no, we invented this. This is ours. And now you can't sell your actual product. We're blocking that off. Now we're just going to sell our product. Or if we're using things in your place, we have to have access to the certain things in your country. But when you come to our country, you're not allowed to have access to these things in our country. There's certain things about that. And I don't know if this is part of them just having that communist attitude or just the issues that country has been through coming up with a great leap forward and different things going through it. Just a general acceptance that some people in the West have for communism and socialism, talking about, oh, we need our fair share of this. People looking at China as, oh, these poor Chinese people, this developing country. And they have had struggles. I think on average, your average American has a better quality of life than your average Chinese person. And that plays into the way the countries run, the things they're accepted for, because some of the things I look at and say that is a horrific situation, what they lived through in recent memory makes them think like, oh no, this is actually exponentially better than they could have even imagined it being a mere 30 years ago, even though if that was what was happening in the West, people in the West would be like, if they would not even be, they can't imagine living in that kind of lifestyle. I think I just recently saw something being posted saying the poorest 25% in the United States of America is actually living a better quality of life than most of the middle class people in Europe. In Europe. Because when people think Europe, it's a similar thing how when people think about the United States of America, they think of New York City, LA, Washington, D.C. They don't think of the, quote, flyover countries. They don't think of those places. They think of these more touristy places. And I think that's the same thing when people think about Europe. They think of London. They think of Paris. They think of Rome, Rotterdam, Venice, Belgium. Most of these places I've mentioned, they might think of Russia, but most of the places I've talked about are on the western part of Europe. And they think about the capital cities, the bigger cities, and things like that, more touristy places. They don't think of just the rest of the people just living their lives, especially Eastern Europe doesn't normally come up unless it's like for negative things. Like, damn Eastern Europeans. And when they think of Russia, it's more Russia. It's just this Russia place. It's not only St. Petersburg or Moscow. It's just Russia. This kind of caricature of it. So I don't think people have a better understanding, that good of understanding of it. So China is maybe also just sort of this nebulous China thing, and it's this. So just some general frustration. So when you come to that kind of situation where you say, okay, taxation isn't theft, some people have more than we have, and if we are in a situation where we are more wanting, we are the poor, we are the 99%, would it be a situation where people just kind of think like, oh, China just doesn't have these things due to it being a pro-white, anti-racist to other people, even though China isn't a minority when you count actually per population of the world, so it's not necessarily a minority, but there's still somehow disadvantage in this white man's world. This is the situation where somehow white people did something to China to take away the things they could actually invent, and now China is just somehow taking back their fair share of the world's ideas. Is that kind of the mentality that people have towards that, or is that just the communist mentality where in China themselves, like, do the Chinese people who are actually believing that system, have they been indoctrinated to the point or just being messaged to the point where they actually do believe that China is coming up with all these inventions, and if anything, it's the West that's coming to steal on them? It's a West that actually needs China to invent and create these brand new ideas that are bringing the world forward. I don't know. It's sometimes hard to kind of try and think, how would it be from that point of view? How would I look at the world? But I'm just trying to see the actions of what they do. Some people must think this. They must kind of think that, okay, if an American company did this, that would be negative. If America went to another country and did what China is doing in other countries, that would be negative. But if it's China doing it, somehow China is disadvantaged, and this is just getting on a fair. It's something more fair when the disadvantaged Chinese do it versus the oppressive Westerners or Americans. I don't know. So like, share, subscribe. Appreciate you taking your time to listen to this. Till next time, links to merchandise stores somewhere here, as wherever you listen to this. Goodbye.